And one day she came home from school, in tears and asking me, why her hair looked different from her classmates.
She's 14 years old.
Yes.
And Target has come out and publicly said she's the youngest CEO to ever launch a brand at Target. And yet we know that there's a dip in girls' self-confidence that continues to go down as they go from, a young child into adolescence.
Yes.
Run toward the unknown. When you're riding the big wheel, you're not alone.
Today's guest is Evana Eko, co-founder and mom-in-chief of Beautiful Curly Me, an Atlanta-based company on a mission to build confidence in young girls through dolls, books, puzzles, and empowering content. Evana and her daughter Zoe created the brand after Zoe struggled with confidence and self-esteem. Now, Zoe leads as CEO and her mom supports her as together they build a platform designed to help girls celebrate who they are, build confidence, and learn self-love. The brand operates a social impact model that includes donating a doll to a girl in need for every doll purchased. Welcome, Evana.
Thank you. So exciting to be here with you today, Michelle.
I know. I think it's just so exciting. I was really looking forward to our podcast today.
Yes.
And, I found out about you and became interested in you through one of the programs that they have at Emory.
Yes.
And it's the Gozetta, of all things, Impact program,
Impact
right?
Day. Absolutely.
And so I was researching and looking at all of the people that were attending that, and your name stuck out to me. And I kind of researched you because I found out about Beautiful Curly Me. So that is why we're here today. And I really want to thank you for doing that, because what your daughter is doing, it's an amazing story. And I know that, you are out there and really, she's got a lot of promotion around that story. Mm-hmm. But I really think that you can never do enough to really promote girls' self-confidence, self-esteem, and really raise awareness to what's going on out there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so thank you for that.
Thank you.
So I would love for you to start by just sharing a bit with everyone here your personal story and that of you and Zoe, and what led you to create Beautiful Curly Me.
All right. So this journey has been very interesting, to say the least. So as a new mom of an amazing little girl, I was just, going through the motions and being a great parent. And one day she came home from school, in tears and asking me, why her hair looked different from her classmates. And, I paused because at first I was taken aback. I said, is anyone saying anything strange to you? Like, what's going on? And she's like, Mommy, they touch my hair, or try to touch my hair and, ask me why it looks different. And, I'm looking around me and everyone's hair looks different. And, so for me, it's interesting. And to take a step back, I grew up in an all-Black society. So I grew up in Nigeria. And so for me, this was something brand new because I never really felt different growing up. And, compared to my daughter, who was in a predominantly white classroom. And so this really bothered me. And she kept kind of talking about this. And, as a mom, I really wanted to help her. And so I leaned into my village. I called my sister, my mom, and, was talking to them to ask them, what could I do to help Zoe feel better about herself? And so my sister actually was the one that suggested, getting her a black doll. She's like, what kind of toys is she playing with? And again, I didn't grow up playing with dolls myself. I was always outside climbing trees. And so Zoe loved dolls, but I realized at that point that I hadn't really been intentional about the kinds of dolls that she was playing with. And she had a lot of gifted toys and they really didn't reflect her.
Wow.
And so on that advice, I went out and got her a black doll. I started doing affirmations with her. I would tell her, you're beautiful. Don't let anyone tell you different. Your hair is beautiful. I started wearing my hair natural to also encourage her, because that was something else that came out of that, where she pointed out the fact that I, at the time, was wearing extensions because I was trying to fit into a corporate mold of, straight hair, which I know we'll talk a little bit about, with the Crown Act and these, things, discrimination against, Black women specifically in the workplace. And so I had also succumbed to the pressures of wanting to fit in. And I didn't realize that that was something that my daughter had noticed and, probably was also affecting her in some way subconsciously. And so a combination of things, me starting to wear my hair natural, me encouraging her, affirming her, just paying attention to the book she was reading and shows she was watching, making sure she was seeing characters that reflected her. And this doll, she loved this doll. She was so attached. But then she started saying, Mommy, why does this doll have straight hair? Why doesn't this doll have hair like mine? And that's when it hit me, because I didn't realize at the time, the dolls in the stores really all just had silky straight hair. They were black dolls, complexion wise, but they had straight hair. And so Zoe kept talking about it. And she said, Mommy, this doll doesn't have hair like mine. Can we make a doll with braids? Can I make one with curly hair? I know. I couldn't believe it. I'm like, you're 6 years old. What are you talking about? And she's like, I want to make my own. Can we make a business? And really,
She said that.
She said that.
Wow.
She said that. And so I didn't take her seriously. She kept pestering and talking about it. When are we going to make my doll, Mommy? When are we going to make my doll? And so one day I said, you know what? You want to make a doll? Okay, let's talk about it. And that's how Beautiful Curly Me really came to life.
Wow.
Yes.
So she was pretty young, right?
Yes.
Like 7, I think, at the time.
She was 6 at the time.
She was 6 years old. Mm-hmm. So what was that like, that journey of because now you have to support her.
Yes.
And you're thinking about making a doll that can be sold, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, you already had this in your mind. Now I realize you are a marketing professional and you held a marketing leadership position at the time.
Yes,
right?
I did. So I have my MBA from Emory, which is obviously the connection from when we met. And coming out of Emory, I worked at several organizations, CNN, Delta. At the time when this happened, I was working at Georgia Pacific, leading marketing for the brands on Amazon and some other e-commerce platforms. So yes, I have a solid marketing background, but no knowledge of toy. No knowledge of toy. And that's a whole different business, right? A whole different industry. And so it was a learning curve for sure. It was a big learning curve. But I think at the time, I don't know that I was thinking we're going to create a doll that we would sell. I think it was just more of just feeding into my daughter's, she just kept talking about it. I'm like, okay, let's see what we can make, or let's see what we can do.
Wow.
And so we just sat together and we started researching, and I just sat her next to me. And I'm like, let's see what we can find online. So it was a lot of trial and error, just Googling and just trying to understand where could you source dolls from, like how, looking at designers on some certain marketplaces. So we hired a freelance designer and had Zoe,
oh my gosh,
kind of express what she thought the doll should look like, did a preliminary sketch. And so it was just the process of just trial and error and just a fun thing that we were honestly doing together. I don't think either of us could have fathomed that it would turn into a business, to be very honest with you.
Amazing.
Yeah.
That is something. So how long did it take to get from concept to production?
Probably about a year.
Wow.
A year of just consistent, talking to different vendors and factories, working through the design process and then getting samples and going back and forth and not knowing what we didn't know and just
oh my gosh,
trying to figure it all out. So the very first packaging looks nothing like this. It was, completely different. But we were excited, and I think just that journey was really beautiful just to see her. I could see she was really excited, okay, it's actually happening. This doll's actually happening. And then when the dolls finally came in, I took money out of my savings again. We didn't even try to look for investment or anything.
Right.
It was a passion project between myself and my daughter. Yep. And so bringing the doll in the first time, she laid her eyes, it's like, oh my goodness, this is actually real.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was incredible.
So the first set of dolls, I'm very curious about this because I'm an entrepreneur.
Yes.
Came from, so you had them manufactured, and I think they were overseas.
Yes.
So how many dolls did you have to bring in, and what was your plan? Did you have a plan for what you were going to do with these dolls?
Honestly, not really. Not really, but I knew we would figure it out. I think for me, it was very important to make sure Zoe really understood. I mean, she was 7 years old at the time. How do I make it tangible for her? And so we started doing little markets, right? So little pop-up shops. I signed up for a couple. I remember one of the first ones, the Village Market at the time. They actually now have a retail store, but at the time they used to have community pop-up events. And so I signed up and I was like, all right, let's go do one. And we set up a table. It was the most ridiculous looking display, but we were just, okay, let's just set it up, had our tablecloth and put it up there and let's just see. And so I think for her, that really made it real, where she saw like actual customers, like people, not just friends and family that said, oh, this is cute, I'll support you.
Right.
Like strangers coming up to the dolls and the little girl saying, oh my God, she looks like me.
Wow.
Oh my goodness. And mommy, I really want this doll. Daddy, I really want this doll. And it was just beautiful. And so Zoe got to like sell the dolls, like, and, you know, see the exchange of, you know, of money for her product, and it really just made it tangible. So it was a small, you know, set of dolls at initial order. I think probably a couple thousand, but
a couple thousand dollars you had to deal with.
Because now, you know, when we're talking, we are bringing in like a whole container load, right?
Wow.
Of, you know, because
that's a lot of dolls in a container.
That's a lot of dolls in a container for sure. So I want to say probably the first set was probably about 1,000 dolls.
Okay.
And so just that was a lot of dolls for us at the time, all in our garage, just trying to figure out how to sell through them. But it was very exciting. I think for us, it was just exciting to go through the process of going to these different markets and selling the dolls to people. And then COVID hit, so we had to really focus on e-commerce at that point.
Sure. So how did that work for you, the shift over to e-commerce during the pandemic?
It was, I would say it was necessary, but it was great. And I think it really helped and strengthened us. So we had a website initially that I put together, but we hadn't really been paying that much attention to it. Because again, I was really focused on Zoe, just really getting to meet people and us kind of driving brand awareness in a very grassroots type of way. And so doing that, right before COVID hit, we actually did another pop-up market. It was Essence. That put it together here in Atlanta. And actually during that market, the target buyers were in the building we didn't even realize. And they came by, they chatted with Zoe. They were like, we love this. We would love to invite you up to Minneapolis. And I was like, oh my goodness, like, we're not ready for this. Like, I didn't know, I didn't like it, but it was amazing. Like, just a testament to the story and the power of the story, and really seeing a young girl creating something that, you know, she didn't have, but she needed. And something that would inspire a lot of other girls. And so right after that visit to Minnesota, COVID hit. And so there was, obviously everything was sort of at a shutdown. And so we really had to start focusing on, okay, what can we do to really drive traffic to the website? And so social media became very important at that point. So we used to do different lives and like read her bedtime stories. And talk, you know, just try to like communicate with our audience. And so we just started growing organically that way.
So she really is the CEO of the company.
Yes.
And you have been very clear about that. In fact, when we were talking about this podcast, you said, you know, I'm the co-founder, but really this is her business.
It is.
And you have said this from the beginning. Now I think it's incredible. She's 14 years old.
Yes.
And Target has come out and publicly said she's the youngest CEO to ever launch a brand at Target.
Yes.
And I'm sure at so many other places as well, too. So I'd love to get into a little bit like how that happened. So now she's 14, 7 years have gone by.
Yes. And
you're there by her side. I have watched some video. I've seen her speak. She's pretty amazing. I mean, proud mom. I am
very proud.
Everything to be proud of. But and she's still your daughter.
Yes.
Though, and she still goes through, I'm sure, all the things that young people go through.
Absolutely.
So tell me how you help balance and keep her grounded. Because that's a tough one. Like she's CEO running this business.
Yes.
She is the brand ambassador of an amazing product.
Yes.
And yet she's still got to go to school, right?
Yes.
So tell me how that works.
It's very interesting. It's a fine dance for sure. I would say from beginning, I've been very intentional about, you know, so with Zoe running the business, you know, from day one, I said, I'm not doing this for you. I'll do it with you.
Okay.
And so we made that agreement. And it's like, anytime you don't think this is something you want to do, you have to communicate and let me know. I'm not, you know, we have to make sure we're, you know, always in lockstep.
Wow.
And so Zoe's very passionate about the brand. I mean, just from the get-go, you know, creating something from scratch where it's like, you know, you didn't see something that reflected you and now you want to create something that reflects you and the other 66% of the world that have curly hair. You know, a lot of studies have shown that girls' self-esteem, you know, starts to drop very early. And so creating that doll as the girl's first best friend, you know, like that buddy, that companion is so important, that representation. And so I think her seeing it and seeing the impact that she created and has, been felt by so many girls really encourages her every day. And so
Wow.
my job as mom is just to continue to support that vision that she has to empower other girls through the dolls. She started writing books when she was 8 years old.
Wow.
And, she's continued to just pour more and more into other girls. And it also has helped her build her confidence along the way. And so when she's juggling everything, I just remind her, at the end of the day, you're doing your best as a young girl. You still have to maintain, your childhood. And I always want to preserve that. So I make time to make boundaries. So, there's time for work, there's time for play, there's time for her to do extracurricular activities. I think it's important for her to have a balanced life. It's not easy. There's always going to be a sacrifice and a push and a pull.
Yeah.
So sometimes, when, things are very busy, especially around the holidays, she knows, this is not the time I get to hang out with my friends, unfortunately, till we get closer to Christmas. And now things have sort of, we've shipped out all the dolls and now we can kind of relax. So she understands there's ebbs and flows and there's, ups and downs with every business. And I think it's just been a journey that we continue to learn and evolve. But communication, I would say, is the biggest thing that's very important for both of us to always make sure we're sharing how we feel. And, if she's tired, I let her rest.
Yeah.
And, we are able to just kind of lean on each other. And now we have a small team that has sort of helped lighten the burden. But in the beginning, it was definitely very difficult when it was just us.
Wow, just the two of
Yes.
you. That's really amazing. It really is just a story that I just think is so incredible. So what would you say that you've learned yourself about your life and things you've learned about you being the mother of a very young CEO? And what lessons have you learned about motherhood and just you and yourself?
I've learned patience. I think patience has been a big thing. It's not easy. Business in general, you have a business, so you understand there's just a lot that goes into business. It's very demanding.
Yeah.
And I think I've learned that I have to find time to find myself in the middle of all of this, which has not always been very easy.
Yeah.
Because I'm always very protective of my daughter, and she's now in the limelight, and I have to make sure she's not taken advantage of. And so it's like your brain is always working twice as hard, if you will. But I would say patience has been the big thing, and just being grounded in my faith has really helped me, leaning on my community. I have a very close knit with my family. And so just kind of keeping her grounded that way as well, I think has been very helpful. We've gotten some good trusted advisors around us and, some small communities of fellow entrepreneurs that really kind of helps everyone sort of, stay grounded and balanced with everything. But I would say for me personally, it's been just patience, learning that, you're working with a young child, she's not always going to get everything right every time. And you just have to be flexible. You have to know that, there's going to be ups and downs throughout the journey, but just being patient, I think has been the biggest thing.
All right. So I want to talk about the whole reason behind this. And we're going to talk about young girls today, their self-confidence, self-esteem, self-love. And, I actually call it a global epidemic.
Yes.
Truly. And so all girls, white girls, brown girls, black girls, all girls across the world seem to face this. And you and I was sharing a story with you about one of my daughters, my oldest daughter, and I began to see the impact, the negative impact of social media on her. And it was one evening that I'd walked into her room and she was just crying her eyes out. Right. And she was crying her eyes out. And I'm like, what is going on? Her life was good when she went into her room. Right. Well, she realized that she hadn't been invited to a party and all these other people were there. It was a birthday party. And she's like, why wouldn't they have invited me? Like, why wasn't I accepted? Right? Now, when I grew up, heck, I wouldn't have even known I wasn't invited to the party unless somebody slipped and said something, right? Like, you don't even know. And by the time Monday comes around, everybody forgot about that party anyway. So it's kind of changed things. And then there's the whole Instagram where you never even know anymore. Now AI has made it even worse, like what's real and what's not.
Exactly.
So I was trying to find a lot of stats. One of the things we discussed is there weren't a lot out there, which that was shocking in and of itself. And yet we know that there's a dip in girls' self-confidence
Absolutely.
that continues to go down as they go from, a young child into adolescence.
Yes.
Right. So the some of the stats out there, let's talk about them. Half of girls, Dove Self-Esteem Project,
Right.
a study of more than 1,000 girls from the ages of 10 to 17. Half of these girls said that social media causes low self-esteem,
Yes.
so 50%. I would argue that it's even higher than
Probably,
that.
yes.
And then, but 90% of all the girls in the study, every single one said they follow at least one account that makes them feel less beautiful, right? Less beautiful about
Sounds
themselves.
like we're working against
right?
ourselves. Yeah.
I mean, it almost does. And then there was another study from Girl Guiding, which, I think of that. It's a UK company. We discussed like the Girl Scouts of the UK.
Right.
And they said it was a large study. 60% of the girls in that study from ages 6 to 11 said they had received negative comments about their appearance already by the time they were 11 years old.
Yes.
And 1/3 of the girls in the entire study said that they lack self-confidence in their appearance. And what we know is that they tracked this and said that it increases with age.
Yes.
Now, we're going to talk about one other study by the Dove Crown study in 2021. And this was really focused on hair and hair bias, something that really I didn't even know existed.
Right.
It just never even occurred to me.
Right.
1,000 girls, ages 5 to 18, 50% of the girls in the study, black or brown, 50% white. And the focus was on hair bias and discrimination. All right. What we find out is that bias and discrimination starts early.
Yes.
It starts as early as the age of 5 years old.
Absolutely.
And in elementary school.
Absolutely.
So now these girls are already getting negative comments about their hair.
Yes.
2/3 of the girls, black or brown, attending a white majority school, said they experienced hair discrimination, and most of this occurred by the age of 12. And 81% of black girls in majority white schools say that they sometimes wish their hair was straight.
Yes.
So let's talk about that.
That is Zoe's exact story. Yes.
And this is today.
Yes, this is today.
This is what I find so surprising.
Yes.
Like I think about everything from how we think about ourselves and then women in general, even women's rights 50 years ago, even in this country. So we've come a long way, but
We have.
I thought for sure that in this day and age, this wouldn't be an issue, but yet it is. So let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think it's really sad. Every time you hear those stats, it's just like, oh my goodness, like there's so much work to be done. It's shocking. I've read, even more studies, 7 out of 10 girls feel less than, and the girls' confidence and the hair and all of the things, right? And so we hear this all the time from our customers, who reach out to us and say, hey, my daughter, they tell us these stories. My daughter comes home, she's crying, people are bullying her, they're picking on her, pulling at her hair, things like that. And, social media, I think has really been a place where, it's created, monsters of a lot of girls where, girls are, having eating disorders because they're trying to look a certain way and body shaming. And so I think for us, it just reminds us of the importance of what we're doing and how we need to just lean into that and continue to put out empowering content, because whether we like it or not, parents are letting their kids be on social media more and more because they're busy or they just, it's a different time, right? And so this is not a dig at any parents, but, I think it's very important that parents should be mindful of what their kids are looking at. They should, there's parental controls for a reason, even though they need to have devices, earlier and earlier now because of safety reasons or drop-offs, etc. I think it's still so important to be very mindful of what your kids are watching and consuming, because it really has a negative impact on them. And I think it's important for us, brands like ours, to continue to put out positive content to combat the negative content that's out there. And so I think that's what we do. We just try to do our part by, continue to put out, encouraging, impactful content for young girls and for parents to consume, to remind their daughters is the importance of loving themselves early. Affirmations. I know we threw that word out around a lot, but they're so important. They're so effective. The words you speak over yourself really take root, and they, you start to embody what you say. And so we have to start teaching our kids early the importance of speaking positive words, the importance of embracing themselves, with their quirks. Like, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Everyone's
What's normal?
beautiful. What is normal?
I mean, really.
Exactly. Everyone's beautiful in their own way. And I think as parents, as mom, especially when I think about my journey with, I talked about earlier, my hair, we are mirrors of our kids. And our kids look at us and they observe every little thing we do. And it's pressure, but it's good pressure. And I think it's important for us to always be mindful of the things we say about ourselves, because they're listening. We don't like certain things and we're verbalizing it. They're paying attention and they're picking up on that. So just being mindful for ourselves as women to always remember to just embrace ourselves and be confident in who we are, because we're teaching our daughters who are watching us the importance and power of just loving yourself and just being happy and content with who you are, because you're amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I will tell you a story, because I want to ask you about some advice you might give to parents and even close friends of young girls that might be wrestling with self-esteem. So I have a niece, and I was up in New York visiting my brother and my sister-in-law. And my sister-in-law was telling me something that her older sister had said to her daughter, and she said she's been crying for days. I'm like, what is the deal? So her daughter has, interestingly enough, very thick, super curly, very full hair.
Yeah.
Just like this hair naturally, but it's light. It's like, dirty blonde, call it, right?
Yeah.
And her, unintentionally, her aunt said, so what are you going to do about your very full curly hair?
Yeah.
Like, have you learned how to straighten it yet? And she was like devastated.
Yeah.
And there was a period of a few years that every time I went back, this girl had her hair. I mean, there was a lot of effort that went into this, right? Into this straightening and doing this to her hair. And fast forward to today, she wears her hair naturally and beautifully, and it looks great, and it's long,
beautiful.
And she's a mother, and her daughter has hair just like hers.
Amazing.
Her daughter is like young, and she's got all the curls, and so does her husband. Her husband's got curly hair.
Nice.
It's really interesting. We talk about them and say, okay, wait, you look at a baby picture of him and a baby picture of her, and they look the same.
Oh, wow.
The same person with their curly hair.
Nice.
So this caused a lot of hurt and harm, this unintentional, comment that this aunt made. And like, what language, what is it that people do unintentionally? And what language kind of helps when they're struggling with self-esteem? Or, what are things that people just need to not say?
Right.
When someone's different.
Exactly.
It could be your hair, it could be anything else.
Right. I think there's a lot of unintentional, unfortunately. And I think that's why we're trying to teach kids early, like even giving, aside, we say every child should have a black doll, because I think it's important that kids have toys that reflect the world around them. And so instead of going to try to touch your classmate's hair, you can touch this one and like get to know it. And because this is very much mimicking natural hair, you can actually wash this doll's hair and all of that, right?
Wow.
And we made that intentional because we want girls to celebrate and enjoy the experience of, learning how to care for their hair, using the doll as a proxy. But and the unintended consequence of that too is also, other kids of other races, other, girls and boys of other races can start to have empathy and understand what other, hair, is like, without having to go be invasive and try to touch an actual human being's hair, which it's very weird.
It's just weird.
Exactly. So I would say, but even I think on both sides, right? So unintentional, people shouldn't say things like, your hair is tough. Like, I think mothers, even Black moms that are, it's time for wash day. Sometimes we make it a bigger deal than it is, right? Because it might be a lot to deal with, quote unquote, right? Maybe your child has a very full head of hair, but the right thing to say is, this is an exciting time. We get to care for your hair. Let's wash it. Let's get all the gunk out, and let's, make it cute for next week, right? Yep. Versus saying, oh my goodness, this is so much hair. Like, you start to make the child feel self-conscious, like, what's wrong with that? The fact that I have so much hair, or it's so tough to comb, or, things like that, right? So I think we unintentionally project, and it comes from years of, like, maybe you had trauma when you were coming up where the straightening process is
Yeah.
very painful. And, back then people tried to fit into the molds. The society, pressured us into thinking straight was better. And then you will go through using relaxers and burning your scalp and doing all these things just to fit in when our own hair is beautiful. So I think we have to unlearn those things and those words as Black women, Black and brown women. But I think every woman or parent in general that's caring for a child with hair that's maybe not like theirs or textured hair should just use positive words. I think that's just the bottom line, is use positive words. Always say things like, your hair is beautiful. You look beautiful just the way you are. Oh my goodness, I love this. It's curly, it's bouncy, it's, whatever the thing is, right? And so even if it takes a longer time, it means, there's that much love that gets to be put into it. And I think it's just about reframing how we see things. And honestly, it's a learning journey for everyone. There's a lot of resources out there. Even Dove, you mentioned, they have a whole, plethora of resources that they are sharing because they're really passionate about, helping everyone help other people feel better about their hair. And I think that's something that we as Beautiful Curly Me are also working to do is, how do we empower our community to champion our girls to celebrate, the natural hair and the, everything about them that makes them special.
So I think about the role of teachers, coaches, people that children are in contact with. It could be their Girl Scout or Boy Scout. You have a niece, I think, in Boy Scouts now, right? Who their instructors might be.
Yes.
And they can also intentionally say things, or maybe even intentionally say things that are harmful and hurtful.
Yeah.
Do you find, I'm going to ask you a question here, that men or women are more or less sensitive to those conversations or what they may say to girls?
I would say it depends. So I think if a man is a father of girls, he probably feels a little bit, he's probably more sensitive to the needs and wants of girls versus maybe a boy dad. But that's just obviously generalization.
Yep.
I think everyone, needs to always try to be more emotionally intelligent. And I think we learned that from just opening up our worlds and talking to more people and people that don't look like you and learning their experiences. I think that all makes us all better humans in general. Because from, talking to you today, I've learned so much about your background, like things I wouldn't even have known.
Yeah.
Right. And, we make a lot of assumptions as we go through life because, we think, oh, if someone doesn't look like me, they might not have had a certain experience. Whereas they might even had more experience, than you have in a certain area. So I think it's usually just about us coming together as human beings and understanding each other and just being kind to each other. I think kindness is something that we don't talk enough about, but just teaching our kids to be kind and think about yourself and how would you feel if someone said that to you?
Yeah.
And I think as parents, if we can instill those values in our children, we just make everyone better. And honestly, if we listen to each other more and we're kind to each other, even if someone says something offensive, you always want to assume positive intent. And then it can be a teaching moment where you're like, okay, wait, this is how this made me feel. And this is why, you shouldn't say things like that. And I think that's what I try to, I have tried to teach my daughter growing up. It's like you have to be kind. You have to always know that people don't know. They're ignorant sometimes. And you use that moment someone makes a weird comment about you to educate them and tell them, no, you know what? No, this is how this is, right? And so I think it's a learning process, but we just have to teach our kids to be kind. I think as adults, we have to remember kindness as well.
Yep, kindness, which can be hard
It can.
Sometimes as a parent.
Yes.
Oh, man, sometimes when you're like, because sometimes the kids can be tough.
They really can be. They really can be.
So I want to get into a little bit about what you guys do, what the company does, what Zoe does, to really give back and support this. But first, can we look at the dolls?
Yes,
a little
absolutely.
bit, okay. So I thought this was really interesting because you said, which I didn't notice, that this gorgeous thing. Now, do they have names? Or
yes, this is Bella.
Bella. Okay, well, she is Bella. It is beautiful. Those eyes are unbelievable. I noticed that right away. But you said you can wash their hair.
Yes.
So what do you wash it with?
Just regular shampoo, regular
shampoo.
products. Yes.
She's beautiful. So she's Bella.
Yes.
And then we have...
This is
over
Benza.
here, like
yes.
Benza?
Benza, yes.
Oh
like
my God, that's so
scientist.
cute. The scientist
Yes.
is Benza. That's a very clever name.
Yes.
Super cute. And she's got cute
She has
hair
cute
too.
curly hair as well. Same hair.
Yeah.
This is Amara. So there's these
Amara.
are the Curly and Confident crew. They're all about helping girls celebrate their passions and things they're interested in. So the love for STEM and STEAM. And
I love that.
yes,
Yep.
because we want girls to know that they can do anything and be anything, and
That's right.
they're
Yep.
not one dimensional, and you can love science but also love art. You can do one or the other. We don't have to be put into little boxes.
Yep.
I think that's part of confidence, is like knowing that, what, I can show up in any space and I can shine just the way I am. And so we try to teach that through the dolls, but then also through the books, the puzzles, and some of the content that we're starting to put out. So
it's just incredible.
It's incredible.
Yeah, I love this. So I see a puzzle
Yeah,
over
this is a
here.
puzzle.
And then you actually gave me.
Yes. Zoe's newest journal.
I know this journal, My Confidence, My Superpower, and it's
Yes.
a self-love journal.
Yes.
And, I think that the whole message behind this, it's lovely. This is a great journal.
Yes. It's
Is
a
that you're
guided
never
journal.
too old.
Never too
right?
old.
To become more confident.
Absolutely.
And to become more super and
Yes,
powerful.
yes.
So I'm kind of excited about, I'm going to use this myself.
I
right?
love it. You have to let me know how you like it.
I
'Cause
will.
It's daily prompts. It's like reminding you to what you're grateful for every day, and like things,
That's great.
affirmations daily. And then there's little lessons in there and challenges.
Yeah, it's really wonderful. So let's talk a little bit more about what Zoe does and what the company does to really get involved in the community and to give back. Because we talk about, you've got this whole social impact mission,
Right.
which is a big part of why the company is.
Yes.
So let's talk about the different things that you do.
Yes. So from day one, Zoe said, I don't want any girl to feel the way I felt, at 6 years old, not loving myself, not loving my hair, and having those self-esteem challenges. We've talked through the stats today. It's really disheartening to know that girls' confidence is at an all-time low, and there's a huge gap, and we have to do our part to fill that gap. And so to whom much is given, much is expected. And so I think for us, from day one, I've always tried to instill in her the importance of giving back, and the importance of community, the importance of the fact, knowing that you're, whoever you are, there's someone else that could be less fortunate, and what can you do to, meet them where they are. And so as part of that mission, we call it Dolls Giving. We give dolls back to girls in need, underserved girls in underserved communities, Title I schools. We partner with a lot of different organizations, foster care, et cetera, to make sure every girl has a doll that reflects her, that represents her, makes her feel good about herself. And so for every doll that's purchased on beautifulcurlyme.com, we give one to a young girl in need. And that's something that we started from the beginning. And it's just a big part of what we do. And so beyond the books, Zoe goes to schools and does story time and reads her books.
Oh, wow.
And we give books away as well. And it's really just about empowering the next generation of girls so that they be confident and know that they can do anything. And it starts with the toys that they're playing with at a young age.
And I do believe you can do, isn't there some kind of a corporate sponsor program as well?
Yes, there is.
What is that?
So companies are able to sponsor a certain number of dolls or, a classroom or, however we want to structure it. But yeah, they're able to sponsor dolls that are at cost essentially to give back to the community. So we can give back to nonprofits that we partner with or or nonprofits that they partner with. But essentially the dolls go back to girls in the communities that need them the most.
That's pretty incredible.
Yes.
And you were recently sharing with me, which I thought was really unbelievable, what you're doing to help young people who are going into their own business.
Absolutely.
Let's talk about that.
Yes. So along the way, a lot of moms and dads will come up to me and say, I love what you're doing with your daughter. My child has a business idea. I would love to, I just don't know where to start. And Zoe, on the other side, felt a little bit lonely, starting this business journey, because a lot of times she'd be in, meetings and rooms with me, and it's all adults, and then it's her, right? And so it's like, where is the space for us young entrepreneurs? And they're out there. So we really wanted to create this community for young people to come in, have this community of other fellow, like-minded youth who are interested in starting businesses, who already have businesses, so they can learn from each other, and then obviously provide mentorship and coaching for them so they can thrive. So it's called Youth Me in Business. It's a nonprofit arm of Beautiful Curly Me we established 2 years ago. And it's really about creating an ecosystem for youth entrepreneurs, between the ages of 11 to 17.
Wow.
Those are very underlooked. Like no one really takes them seriously, and it's important to take them seriously because they have great, brilliant ideas. I think Zoe is a testament to the power of believing in our young people and pouring into them. And so we provide them coaching, mentorship, community, and capital. Capital, very important because you can't run a business with no money. So we give grant funding to help them grow their businesses so they can scale them and impact their communities.
Wow. So how do people find out more about all of these? Can they go to Beautiful Curly Me or how?
Yeah, so Beautiful Curly Me for the products, for the content for Zoe, beautifulcurlyme.com, and we're on all social media platforms. And then Youth Mean Business is youthmeanbusiness.com. You can find out more information about our summit that's coming up this summer, our youth annual accelerator that we have for youth entrepreneurs, where we bring them in, we pair them with mentors, and at the end of the week, we give them grants to go continue to grow their businesses. So that information is at youthmeanbusiness.com.
I think that is amazing. It is unbelievable. So when we think about the journey of these young people, I want to go back to your daughter. And let's talk about how you actually transitioned that business. So you were doing all these markets.
Yes.
I mean, really, this was a grounds up approach, right?
Absolutely.
And you were having products shipped to your home, and it was in your garage and inventorying and all that stuff.
Yes.
And I can completely relate, believe it or not, because I did own a retail business for some time. So how did that all happen? Like the transition into retail, what was that journey like? And what were some of the obstacles and the things that you did to kind of get there?
Yes. So we started off, like you said, very grassroots. And as the business was growing, it really was very organic. So just storytelling, Zoe sharing her journey, we started, getting online on social media. And so it just started growing and evolving. And then during COVID, there was a big outburst of support for Black-owned businesses, with the George Floyd and all of that. So there was almost a light shone on Black-owned businesses at the time. And so that really helped kind of explode the growth of the company at the time, for a very unfortunate purpose, obviously. But I would say that immense support for Black-owned businesses really helped sort of start to create more awareness around the brand, and Zoe just telling her story. And so she started to get a lot of media attention. Again, very organic. And so as we were growing, we obviously grew out of our space. And so we ended up moving into a warehouse. And just the business has just been growing brick by brick, slowly and surely. And then when I mentioned we met the target buyers the first time at this pop-up event. So we went up to Minneapolis, and then COVID hit. So that there was a lull there. And then we came back and just kind of kept in touch with them and talking to them about, what it would look like to potentially launch in retail. And so we took all those meetings, and Zoe, believe it or not, led the meetings.
Wow.
She pitched the buyer
How old
the
was
first
she?
time. She was 10 the first time we pitched the target buyer. The first time, I would say it didn't work out. The buyer loved her, loved the story, but the product wasn't right. The price point wasn't right. And so we came back to the drawing board and talked about what would it take to get into retail. We needed to strengthen our supply chain. We needed to look at the operations. We needed to figure out money, funding, and all of these different things. And so for a young girl, that was a lot for her to absorb.
That's a lot.
It was a lot. But, we had some really good conversations, and we had some advisors kind of give us inputs on, where they felt the business could go. And so I would say just a journey of faith and just continuing to work through the different details of finessing the product. And then the plush dolls actually came out of that. So we looked, we went into the stores and we identified a white space where, plush dolls, but actually fashion plush dolls with actual hair and the features that, were different. So it was a little bit of a different product for Target and for mass retail in general. And so, Zoe had this great concept of, we should create this line of dolls because she has an idea for a story, an animated content series. And so create this line of dolls that really teach girls to explore their passions and teach girls to, know that they can do anything. And so that's sort of how it came out of just kind of brainstorming and thinking through what could work for retail. And so we came up with this plush doll concept and then pitched it to the buyer the second time. And she absolutely loved it. And so Zoe pitched the buyer herself. Buyer loved it. Price point worked a lot better. And then we just started the journey of trying to figure out where to get the money from to get into retail. And we realized it was very difficult.
Wow.
Very difficult. But we got some great partners with Invest Atlanta, ACE. There are a few community organizations that give funding to small businesses here in Atlanta. So we worked with them to help fund the very first purchase order for Target. And so we launched in Target 2024 summer. Yes, I think Zoe was 12.
Is still new.
It's still very new.
And she's just a child.
Yes, she's 12
really
years
young
old.
Adolescent.
Yes,
Wow.
yes. So very exciting moment, very proud moment to launch, see her, her products on shelves. And I think it's just a testament to tenacity, resilience, hard work, being told no the first time, but coming back and trying to figure out another creative way to get in the door. And I think this is very important because it really establishes a bigger platform for Beautiful Curly Me, because selling e-commerce is great, but then when you have your products on shelves next to the billion-dollar brands,
people see it.
It makes a statement and people see it, and then people get to learn more about the brand and they're inspired, and girls can, there's that instant, immediate, instant gratification they can get from pulling the dolls right off the shelves.
So what would you say? I mean, I'm also an entrepreneur.
Yes.
And I'll tell you that even though none of us like failure,
yes,
it happens.
Yes.
Right? So
100%.
Through that, I had someone tell me once, a very wise woman said that it's not really that you fall down, everybody falls down. It's what are you going to do when you get back up?
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
So it sounds like you had a lot of resilience, curiosity also, and understanding how it could be possible.
Yes.
So there's funding out there. There are resources out there.
Yes.
People just need to keep looking and not give up.
Absolutely. I think we underestimate the power of community. And just, when we first started, it was just us. We didn't know anything. I think tapping into industry organizations for us, for instance, Women in Toys was one where it's okay, this is an organization.
I didn't even know there was Women in
so
Toys.
There's industry organizations that, provide you that community of support where you can ask questions, where you can learn, where you can, get contacts to really help further your business. The Russell Innovation Center for Entrepreneurs is another one here in Atlanta. Yeah. We end up getting office space there, and it's just community that's all about building Black business. And so we, got, connected with corporate partners and just other fellow entrepreneurs to really, again, it's lonely, right, being an entrepreneur, but really just to get that support, get advice, get potential connections, and just get the knowledge that you need and potential funding to help you with your business. So I think for us, what I've learned is every door has opened another door, and it's really just about continuing to try and don't give up. When one door closes, something else will open, and just not being afraid to ask and not being afraid to speak up. Use your networks, use your, LinkedIn, use, the connections that you've built over the years. And, what we know now is what we're trying to pour in to help the other youth entrepreneurs that are coming up, because, it's definitely a very difficult journey, but nothing is impossible. I think we all have what we need to thrive. It's just a matter of really looking around us.
Yeah.
And really just trying to figure it out as we go along and not being afraid to fail, but just continuing to push forward.
Stay in that path. So you said a few things that I think are really important. The one is the power of a network.
Yes.
The power of community and people that can hold you up. And it sounds like in your case, you also have a really good power of family.
Yes.
Right? Family, friends, community,
yes,
networking, resilience, and not giving up. I think it's pretty amazing, actually.
It is.
So I wish you all the success.
Thank you.
I know.
Thank you.
I'm really interested to see what's next.
Yes.
Because really, she's 14.
She's 14.
But let me just ask you, as we're kind of wrapping up, I wanted to talk to you about this.
Yes.
You mentioned an animated series or something.
Yes.
Tell me about this. This daughter of yours is so creative.
She's creative. I have to keep up with her. Sometimes I'm like, hold on.
I know.
We gotta take it step by step. But yeah, she, again, her big vision, right, is starting off purpose-wise is really about empowering girls to do whatever their big thing is, right? So confidence, to do their big thing so they can achieve their highest potential. And so as part of that, it's like, okay, what's our big goal? And so we talk about this all the time.
Yeah.
And one of our advisors, has this really great framework. His name is Jeff Hillemeyer. It's called PVTV. And it's purpose, vision, tenets, and values. And so it's like for every body, actually, everybody should have their personal PVTV. So Zoe and I have actually worked through what our personal one is and then what it is for the businesses that we run, right? And for the organizations. And so starting with your purpose and then your vision, like your big vision, and then like the 3-year vision, and then going into like the tenets is how you actually achieve that vision, and the values is kind of like what drives you. And so one of our values is actually fail up. So it's like, how do you keep failing and trying again, but failing fast so that you can keep learning.
Yep.
But yeah, her big vision is, how do I empower 10 million girls over the next 5 years?
Wow.
Like, that's so huge. So the only way we can get there is through, like, obviously a big push. So not just products, but mass media content starts to really play a big role. And so she has a really great idea for an animated series called Bella Means Business. And it's really about
Bella Means Business.
Bella Means Business. And it's really teaching girls the power of curiosity, problem solving, and just not giving up. And so so she's been working on that. So that's something that we're working through to bring to life, hopefully very soon. And then through our giving back initiatives, right, continue to give back more. So how do we continue to accelerate that? And then through like content for schools, so edutainment, and like thinking about, she just came out with a course. And she's selling a curriculum, like SEL-based curriculum that she's going to be selling into schools. So that's another way to reach people faster and further to really achieve that big goal.
Wow, she is a lot to keep up with.
She is.
That is so incredible. I got to tell you, she's
still a very normal kid. She plays tennis.
Really?
Yes. She's on her school's tennis team. She loves to play tennis, and she likes to hang out with her friends and be a normal teenager. Yeah. She's in the 9th grade now. So it's a lot for her to juggle, but I think team is very important. And I think we're so grateful. We have a small team that helps us, and, community, like I mentioned, and using the power of technology to make things more efficient in this world of AI that we live in, right?
Yeah.
But, just again, I think trying not to bite off more than we can chew, and just doing the best we can every single day to further the mission. And, everything we look through that lens of, how, is this going to help us with our mission of empowering girls? And, making sure we're very focused on that.
Wow. Well, I am really excited
yes.
to continue to follow that journey.
Thank you.
With you. Yeah. Thank you so much
yes.
for being here today and sharing your story. And for those that are listening today, if you have been touched by this episode, my ask is that as you think about the young girls in your life today, if they could use any type of confidence boost, just give them a good conversation today, right? And give them a positive affirmation.
Yes.
And tell them that they are beautiful.
And they're worthy.
And they are worthy.
Yes.
So again, beautiful curly me. We will have in our show notes how you can get a hold of Evana directly, and how you can get a hold of or learn more about the program that they have. And thank you so much for sharing your time with us today.
Thank you, Michelle. It's a pleasure.